Hi, hello everybody, I'm Justin and this is Koopa. Welcome to Koopa's Corner. And today we're going to talk about the road to WrestleMania 42 in Las Vegas. The Royal Rumble is behind us. It just happened a week ago. And I don't really do post shows much anymore because I haven't really been watching the PLE since they've jumped to ESPN. But this one has huge implications, and there was a lot of possibilities for which way they could go, and they've already made some of those directions pretty clear on Monday Night Raw. And I just kind of want to talk about what I think they're going to be doing, what they could have been doing instead, and some of the options of where they could go still. It's not too late. And I just want to talk about this build to WrestleMania because WrestleMania season, baby, it's awesome, it's exciting, and there's a lot to talk about. So, first of all, the Royal Rumble had a couple of big moments, including two winners. So we're going to start there. Perhaps the more controversial one, Roman Reigns. A lot of people pretty happy about it, a lot of people not so happy about it, and I understand why, right? It's not Roman himself. This is not the Roman of 10 years ago, right? This Roman really found himself during the pandemic with the bloodline. He developed into like a pretty solid performer, right? He's a top guy. There's no doubt about it. He is the guy that they always thought he could be. It just took him a little bit longer to get there. I think a lot of people don't like it because he has sort of reduced his schedule and he's sort of wrestling part-time. So, okay, great. There were a couple options they could have done here to make the build to WrestleMania more interesting. Instead, the very first Monday Night Raw, 2 days after the Rumble, he comes out, he gets into a verbal altercation with CM Punk, and he declares in front of God and everybody, CM Punk, I'm choosing you. So we've got our main event to WrestleMania, right? I think that they think that this is probably a bigger match, than it really is, or at least I don't think it's as big of a match as they think it is, right? It's pretty solid, but it's a little boring. And the thing with this match is, okay, great, you've got two big names, which is going to help you draw for Mania, but it sort of leaves you with a lose-lose for the Raw after Mania, right? You don't have much gain. All right, the biggest problem with this is either Roman wins and he goes back to being a part-time champion and the title's not around much, or CM Punk wins, who's also on the tail end of his career. He's getting up there in age and he doesn't really gain anything from beating Roman Reigns, right? And this WrestleMania felt like maybe they should steer more into the, young up-and-coming superstars, and it felt like there was a real possibility, right? It felt like Braun Breaker was the pretty obvious choice to win the Rumble, and he didn't do it. He was the first one out, actually. Huge shocking moment. So where do you go from here? Really, you don't go anywhere. You just continue with this match, and you deal with the consequences afterwards. A couple of things that they could have done to make this more interesting, right? Instead of automatically declaring CM Punk on that first Monday Night Raw, have him challenge for the WWE title, his title on SmackDown, right? And I know a lot of people are thinking, well, I'd rather have him face Punk than Drew McIntyre again, right? But didn't have to face Drew McIntyre. I love Drew McIntyre. I'm a huge Drew McIntyre fan. I think he is one of the best performers in the company. He's definitely undervalued. I'm so excited for him to have the title again, but he didn't have to hold it all the way to WrestleMania. And I think it would have been more interesting had he not. Right? This could have meant, I think, one of two things. He could have lost to Sami Zayn at the Royal Rumble, or he could lose to Sami Zayn at Elimination Chamber if Sami gets a rematch. And then Sami Zayn could have gone on to face Roman Reigns. There's a lot of history there with the bloodline, and I know Sami's been around now for, 10 years or whatever as well. He's not exactly a spring chicken, but he hasn't reached that top level. He's never won a world title. So him going to win and then defending it successfully against Roman Reigns, it really calls back Eddie Guerrero winning the title, from Brock Lesnar at No Way Out in 2004, and then defending it against Kurt Angle. It's sort of, okay, yeah, he won the title, but this is when he becomes the guy, right? So I think Sami Zayn would have been a great option. I also think Drew losing the title in a triple threat match to Cody Rhodes and Jacob Fatu at Elimination Chamber would have been a great option as well. And not that I want to see Cody and Roman again, that would have been boring. But imagine if Jacob Fatu won the title. Now all of a sudden Roman and Jacob Fatu are gonna go one-on-one for the title here. There's a little bit of history, right? The two bloodlines were kind of doing a thing before Jacob kind of went off on his own. But part of the narrative, anyway, is that Roman kept Jacob Fatu out of the WWE. He thought he was a wild card. He didn't want him there, right? At least when they were doing the bloodline versus bloodline storyline, that was part of the narrative. So Jacob Fatu and Roman Reigns, again, fresh matchup, and you're sort of passing the torch to that next generation in Jacob Fatu. I think both of those options would have been a little bit more interesting. All right, the other Royal Rumble winner, Liv Morgan. Right, it feels like Liv Morgan is going to choose Stephanie Vaquer, stay on Monday Night Raw. That would be a very solid match, right? I'm not upset if that's the direction that it goes. But I think it could be a little bit more interesting, right? And I think had Stephanie Vaquer lost the title to Raquel Rodriguez in that street fight, then you set up Raquel versus Liv, or potentially Raquel versus Liv versus Roxanne Perez in a triple threat, and you finally dissolve the Judgment Day, right? It's more interesting, right? Again, wouldn't be upset if it's Stephanie Vaquer. I like Stephanie Vaquer, but it feels like she's lost a lot of steam. She needs new entrance music. She needs maybe new attire. She needs to sort of shift the way they present her a little bit. She's a great in-ring performer. But her English isn't great. It's getting better, but it isn't great, which makes her promo suffer a little bit. And, right now, this her sort of wrestling is my first language. All right, I get it, it's cool, but it leaves a little something to be desired. And this storyline with Raquel, kind of injuring her and going after her, kind of wanting that revenge, finally has given Stephanie something to sink her teeth into, right? So it's finally giving her some good storylines, as opposed to just, I'm a good wrestler, right? I'm just happy to be here. I'm a good wrestler. It's kind of boring. I think she's definitely lost some steam. And if you pivot and you go Liv versus Raquel, or Liv versus Raquel versus Roxanne, where does that leave Stephanie? Right? Kind of out in the cold. There's nowhere really else for her at WrestleMania, right? She'd have to be thrown into a last-minute, haphazard kind of a feud just to get her on the card. But I still think it would be really interesting if Raquel takes the title, or maybe Roxanne takes Dom finally, and Liv gets put on the outs. You get a triple threat, you get, a singles match with one or both of those competitors. And if you're splitting the Judgment Day, why not do Finn Balor versus Dom for the IC title, right? Because right now, the Intercontinental Championship is not being defended, right? There's no really storyline for Dom. He's been out injured. So a couple of directions you could go there. I mean, yeah, she could always go Jade on SmackDown as well, but that feels not very likely. It feels probably the least likely of all of those. And Jade's kind of got her own things going on, right? Jade could potentially be going up against Tiffany Stratton. I think that's the match we're going to get, right? That's my prediction for WrestleMania, Jade versus Tiffany Stratton. A little surprised we didn't get a Bianca Belair return in the Rumble, and I kind of hope that we get one before WrestleMania, and then they pivot and they go Jade versus Bianca. That's probably the match we should have gotten last year. But we don't know what Bianca's recovery timeline is going to look like, right? She's been out since WrestleMania last year. She's been out for the better part of 9 months for like a finger injury. So something's clearly not healing correctly. She clearly doesn't have proper use of her hand yet, or she'd be back. So right now, I think they're just going to run back Jade versus Tiffany Stratton. That way Tiffany gets on the card, right? So these are kind of the three big, the two Rumble winners, the women's world title match. Let's talk about right now, we sort of talked about Drew McIntyre a little bit, but let's talk about the other world title since we talked about the other women's title, right? We didn't get, for Elimination Chamber, Cody Rhodes and Jacob Fatu. So we could get it for WrestleMania, or we could get Drew versus Cody again at Elimination Chamber, and then just Drew versus Jacob Fatu at Mania in a one-on-one match, and Jacob could win like the Elimination Chamber match. That feels probably the most likely way to go with that. If they were going to run back Cody Rhodes, we could get a stipulation match if they wanted to do a one-on-one versus Drew and Cody, because they've faced each other enough times. You kind of need to add a cage, a last man standing, something to sort of elevate it. Because frankly, as big of a star as Cody is, he's ran through the same 3 or 4 people enough now, and it's boring, right? He needs a little something. He needs a little something, spice him up a little bit. But yeah, we also are likely to get Braun Breaker versus Seth Rollins, right? Braun Breaker being thrown out of the Rumble first because he was attacked by a masked man. If he's not going to win and go on to face CM Punk and to be elevated to that top level at WrestleMania, then Seth Rollins makes the most sense for that masked man, because Braun betrayed him and took the vision from him. There's enough story there. That'll be a good match. Seth can put over Braun. Braun can sort of come out of that still looking pretty good even without a title. The other option, maybe like a Logan Paul. It feels early to split up the vision. But, if they want Braun to sort of ascend to the top as a good guy, having the vision turn on him makes a lot of sense as well, right? Logan Paul wants to be the guy. So he's the one who masked up and attacked him. I don't think it's likely. But that's one direction they could go, I suppose, right? So right now, just to recap, we're looking at Roman versus Punk, Liv versus Stephanie Vaquer, Jade versus Tiffany Stratton, Drew versus Jacob Fatu, or potentially versus Jacob Fatu and Cody Rhodes, and then Braun Breaker and Seth Rollins. So 5 matches so far for WrestleMania, but there's a lot of people left off the card, a lot of more WrestleMania we can talk about, right? Another very obvious one, feels like they're building towards, is El Grande Americano versus El Grande Americano. With Chad Gable's return at the Royal Rumble as the original El Grande Americano, and them calling him the original El Grande Americano, just acknowledging that it is 2 different people, which they weren't doing at first. They could do like a mask versus mask match, unmask Ludwig Kaiser, get him back as Ludwig Kaiser, or Chad Gable, whoever. It feels kind of low stakes, but it feels like a match they could add in, right? Rhea Ripley, one of their biggest stars, obviously going to be on the card. I think her and Io Sky are going to defend the tag titles, potentially against the Bella Twins, potentially in like a 4 corners tag or a gauntlet or some other sort of multi-women match, just to get a bunch of the tag teams on there and get a bunch of people on the card, right? The tag division is always a great way to get as many people on the card as possible. Maybe a ladder match, something like that, right? The Kabuki Warriors, Chelsea Green and Alba Fire. You could get Julia and Kiana James. You could get Nia Jackson, Lash Legend. Bunch of tag teams. The tag team division for the women has gotten a lot of focus lately, right? Bayley and Lyra Valkyria. A lot of focus on the women's tag division, which is great, but unfortunately, not a lot of like tried and true teams, right? A lot of the right now are single superstars who just got paired together for a while, right? Same thing with Charlotte and Alexa Bliss. I don't think Charlotte and Alexa Bliss are going to chase the tag titles in Mania, though. I think they're going to have a one-on-one match. I don't think they're going to split up Rhea and Io until after WrestleMania so that they can split up Alexa Bliss and Charlotte before WrestleMania. Because you don't really want to run that same story twice, right? So I definitely think Alexa versus Charlotte will be on the card, and a Rhea Ripley, Io Sky tag team title defense will be on the card as well. Couple more big name women left off the card so far. Becky Lynch, I think she's going to defend her Women's Intercontinental Championship against AJ Lee. Right? Again, feels pretty obvious. Not a lot of, like, they should, go in other directions. Like, this feels like the way to go with that, right? The Usos have the tag team championships right now. They'll probably defend it. My guess is against the Vision, Bronson Reed and Austin Theory, or Bronson Reed and Logan Paul, depending, on which way they want to go. But yeah, it feels likely the Vision. You bring a little gold back. Right? There's not a lot going on in the Raw tag division either way. The SmackDown tag titles. Honestly, I don't even know. Is it the Wyatt Six or is it the MFTs that hold the titles right now? I know they've traded them back and forth. They could be on the card. I don't even know that they will be, honestly. It feels pretty low stakes. They haven't really been on many PLEs recently. It feels much lower stakes than the Usos, unfortunately. So yeah, the SmackDown tag titles, maybe not. We mentioned both Intercontinental Championships, but we haven't talked about either United States Championship. Carmelo Hayes and Julia. There could be a title defense there. There could be a multi-man match there. Again, another great way to add people to the card. They don't have their teeth right now in a lot of, big story kind of momentum going on. You could always crown a Trick Williams, a Javon Evans, somebody like that. There's been a push for these guys, these new guys, these young guys, these NXT guys coming in. I'm sure we'll see Trick Williams. I'm sure we'll see Javon Evans. Oba Femi. He'll probably get a match, a United States title match, maybe, right? It could happen. I mean, they also could go Oba versus Brock Lesnar. They teased that at the Rumble. Rumor has it might not happen at Mania. It might happen later. To that, I question, why use Brock at all? We don't need to use Brock, right? We live in a day and age where we shouldn't ignore all of the shit that Brock Lesnar's been accused of. Brock Lesnar does not need to be on our TVs. He does not add enough value to wrestling to warrant him being there. He's a shitty human being. He is. He doesn't need to be on our TV, right? But it feels like he likely will be, right? Gunther, right? Gunther, the career killer. He might have a match maybe against Rey Mysterio. I don't know who else he could retire at WrestleMania. Maybe Chris Jericho. There was a lot of rumors about him coming back to the Rumble, and that didn't happen. So, who knows? Maybe he won't, but Gunther is too big of a star to be doing nothing, right? He needs a story, and he needs a story soon. Yeah, and if it's not going to be retiring somebody, then he probably should have won the Rumble. He would have been a better winner than Roman, likely, right? Because Gunther's a fairly young guy. Again, him going up against a CM Punk and taking the title back, or Drew McIntyre, or Sami Zayn, or Cody Rhodes, or whoever on SmackDown, right? That could have breathed a little life into it if he changed shows. I mean, there would have been real stakes. It could have helped elevate Gunther even further. But right now, I think there's too much invested in him, and he's too big of a name, right? You got to go all in with Gunther, right? He needs a match. Against whom? I don't know. It remains to be seen. The same thing could be said about LA Knight. LA Knight is kind of in a storyline. He's kind of going after the Vision, right? Maybe he teams with the Usos and it's a 6-man tag. Maybe he gets a one-on-one versus Bronson Reed while Logan and Austin go for the tag titles or something, right? He'll likely be involved some way, somehow. I don't know how, but it feels right now like he's not going to pivot away from the Vision before WrestleMania, right? I also want to mention Chelsea Green. I said maybe she could be in the tag title match, but I genuinely feel like she's too big of a star to do that to. Despite what Michael Hayes says in Unreal, they have something special in Chelsea Green, and they need to use her better. And I think giving her a one-on-one match at WrestleMania would be huge, right? Even if it's to put somebody else over, which you don't want, you'd rather see her get the spotlight because she can once again show up and outshine whoever she's in the ring with, right? Maybe a Sol Ruca getting called up, right? They've been liking her. They put her in the Rumble. They put her in Evolution. They put her in Saturday Night's Main Event, John Cena's final match. So it feels sooner rather than later like she's going to get called up. If Bianca returns, she could always face Tiffany Stratton or something like that as well. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of options here. There's some really interesting stories that they could have told that they kind of pivoted away with, especially with Roman Reigns. I feel like we've got a pretty solid, like, maybe 10 or 11 matches, but there's probably going to be room for, I would guess, 14, right? Most PLEs under Triple H have 5. But WrestleMania has 2 nights, so that means 10 if they stick to it. But WrestleMania being bigger, I wouldn't be surprised if they went 6 or 7 each night. And if you do 7 each night, 14 matches. So there's some room to grow, and there's a lot of stars being left off the card so far, right, that don't really feel like they have direction. I know we still got some time for WrestleMania. But I've just been thinking about it, particularly about like the different ways they could have pivoted Roman. I've been having a couple of conversations with friends and family about kind of how boring of a choice Roman is. And I was, at first I was like, well, maybe, but he doesn't have to be, right? And I started laying out some of these scenarios, and then Monday hits, and it's, nope, I'm challenging CM Punk. And they don't even draw out the extent there. And so I kind of got a couple I told you so's, Tuesday morning. Yeah, what can you do, right? I just think there potentially some really interesting stuff. If Roman hadn't won the Rumble, we could have finally gotten Roman versus The Rock, right? That's a match we should have gotten a couple years ago, but Cody Rhodes had to steal it from us, right? Who knows, right? But as it stands, WrestleMania should still be pretty good, even if it's maybe not the most inspired storytelling to get there. Let me know, guys, what you think, particularly about Roman Reigns. Do you like that he won the Rumble? Do you not? Are you happy he chose CM Punk, or do you not? If not, who else would you like to have seen him face? Right? I want to hear your thoughts specifically about Roman Reigns in the comments. Let me know. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.